Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 19 of the Revive Yourself podcast. Here we go.
Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? Have you got a health issue that just won't go away no matter what you try? Then welcome to the Revive Yourself podcast, where we reveal the secrets to long-lasting health by getting to the root cause of problems that no one else is talking about. So you can have more energy, clear skin, healthier hair, a leaner physique, more confidence, and most importantly, do the things you love and live the life you deserve. Here's your host, Ryan Martin.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the Revive Yourself podcast. Before we get on to today's episode 19, I just want to say for all of you that emailed about the free 4-day gut revival course, well done on getting on that. And anyone else who would like to participate in our free course, it's a free 4-day course where you get given. It's not just for people who have got gut issues. If you've got skin issues, if you've got any sort of chronic issue, whether it be thyroid, adrenal problems, chronic fatigue, mind problems, and if you've been ill with anything, our 4-day course really gets to the root cause of your problems because, as I said before, all health begins in the gut. So when you actually start to heal the gut, miraculous things happen. In fact, once you start to heal the gut and you heal the liver, then the rest of the body basically takes care of itself. 80% of your immune system lies in your gut. It is your enteric nervous system. It is your abdominal brain, and then you've got the liver, which is the battery of life. So once you take care of those two organs, or I say organs, once you take care of the gut, digestive system, and the liver, miraculous things can happen. So if it's something that you'd like to get involved in, then you can send me an email at ryan@reviveyourself.co and I'll send you everything you need for that. Otherwise, there's a post up on my website. If you go to www.reviveyourself.co and type in free 4-day total gut revival, then you should be able to find the link and everything you need there. But it will tell you exactly what's been going on, why you've got these problems that you've got, and how you can get through them and get to the root cause, rather than just taking medication, pills, popping pills, whatever you've been doing. It's just all these things that just mask the problem. They just put band-aids over the problem and they don't actually get to the root cause, which is why other problems keep popping up, or the actual issue doesn't go away. And I always say to people, the body has got an innate ability to heal itself given the right circumstances, and you haven't got a bad body. You just need to give it what it wants and it will respond. But more than anything, what you'll actually get to understand is why these problems have been happening and what you can do to overcome them. And to be honest with you, it's a course I could actually be charging for. There's a lot of courses out there with a lot less information, a lot less quality information that charge. But I just want people to understand what's been going on, so they can really start to get through their own health issues and start to work on themselves and stop just masking symptoms. I keep going on about it, but keep masking symptoms with band-aids and pills and medications. As I said before, I'm not a medical doctor, I can't give medical advice, but I am a health practitioner, I am a nutritional therapist, and I know the power that treating your body well and giving it what it needs can do. As I say, the medical industry looks at fighting disease, they look at cut, poison, burn, whereas we, and that's what they do, they look at disease, whereas we look at regenerating health, because we know a healthy body and a healthy person doesn't get these problems. And as Albert Einstein said, if you want to study health, or if you want to be healthy, study healthy people, which unfortunately the medical industry doesn't do. They study disease and they wonder why they can't get the results that we do. So anyway, moving on from that, guys, if you need any information on that, as I said before, hit me up with an email at ryan@reviveyourself.co, or head over to www.reviveyourself.co and look for the free 4-day total gut revival mini course. Anyway, on to today's episode. Today's episode is with holistic health coach Warren Williams. Warren Williams has been in the health industry now for 20 years. He started off as a martial artist, and he got into this. He was working at a normal gym, and he got into holistic health. And he's actually a CHEK practitioner. And those of you who know about Paul CHEK know how it's intensive and how deep he goes in with health, looking at every single aspect. And Warren's a level 4 CHEK practitioner, so to say he knows his stuff would be an understatement. So in the episode, we actually cover all things holistic health. We go into reflex inhibition, how the skeletal system affects organ function, injury prevention for long term, and why he thinks physios and chiropractors generally don't get long term results. We're looking to poor posture, how that affects you, what vertical diseases, how EMF frequencies, electromagnetic frequencies, actually affect you and your health. And then we look at the mental side of health, and we go into a lot more. So without further ado, here he is. Here's Warren. Hope you enjoy, guys, and I'll see you on the other side. Hey guys, and welcome to episode 19 of the Revive Yourself podcast. Today's guest is Warren Williams, if I can speak properly, Warren Williams from Warren Williams Coaching. I've got a bit of a mouthful there, Warren.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful, yeah.
So Warren's based in London, and he's a holistic health coach. He's actually a level 4 CHEK practitioner, and he delves into every sort of aspect of health. How are you doing today, Warren? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. The sun's out, so, you've got to be happy.
Yeah, the sun is out, actually. I was just out in the garden before this, in between calls, getting my daily dose of vitamin D and everything else. So, yeah, it's nice. So, Warren has a background in martial arts, and he's been dealing with helping people for quite a long period of time now. So he's dealt with people from all different professional backgrounds, including sporting, a lot of boxers, footballers. He's consulted with professional football teams. So just for everyone out there, Warren, how did you get into the natural health and holistic health and becoming a CHEK practitioner?
Yeah, well, basically what happened was I was working for a fitness chain, doing the typical fitness instructor stuff, getting people to lose body weight or, focusing on aesthetics rather than function and well-being. And at that time, I had been doing martial arts for probably about 15, 18 years. And I kind of looked at the profession and I was like, these people aren't really experts. I mean, everybody's doing the same thing. Everybody that comes in is being given the exact same exercise program regardless of their goals. And my manager at the time was very much into Eastern philosophy, Ayurvedic healing and stuff like that. And he happened upon this guy called Paul CHEK, and he said, I'm going to get the gym to pay for it. Would you like to come with me to the first UK presentation of this guy? I hear this guy's amazing. So I said, okay, it's free. I'll go. So, we got ready to go. But he actually left the company and he traveled the Far East. So he'd already paid for me to go. So I said, all right, let me go and check out what this thing is about. And I went, I sat in this session. And the guy, Paul CHEK, he looked like a typical musclehead. He was a massive guy, quite built. But the information he came out with was so profound. He was talking about so many different subjects. There were medical doctors there. There were physios, chiropractors, and personal trainers. And so it was quite a good range of people that were into, the wellness field. But he was asking them questions and putting things out there that nobody really knew how to kind of explain. He was asking people questions they couldn't answer. And I was like, wow, this guy seems to know quite a lot. And then I kind of left that seminar with Paul thinking I didn't know as much as I thought. I probably knew about 5% of what he was actually talking about. So it led me to want to study and learn from this man. So I basically spent the next 16 years studying everything he's ever done. All the courses, all the workshops. I've traveled to different countries studying with him. And that's pretty much how I got into it. It's pretty much just through my manager kind of saying, let's go. And I went and I realized I didn't know as much as I thought. And that kind of inspired me to want to learn everything that he taught. And because what he teaches is very multidisciplinary, it focuses on all stages of health and well-being. So that's kind of how I got into it.
100%. For those of you that don't know Paul CHEK, we're hoping to get him on the show as well down the line. But Paul CHEK, some people think of him. He can be controversial. A lot of people.
Controversial.
Yeah. Say a lot of people in our profession, holistic health coaches, are called controversial by the mainstream. But unfortunately for them, our results speak volumes. But Paul CHEK, if you look into any of his stuff, I'd say for me probably one of the most interesting people on the planet, and someone who knows a great deal about a great deal. And for anyone who studied under him, and for the level that Warren's at, I think you can pretty much trust they're going to know their stuff too. He doesn't give out qualifications easily, which is a great thing. So, going through this, I mean, on your website it says what makes Warren Williams coaching different is his unique ability to see the whole person, successfully interpreting what each client is projecting as pain, dysfunction or emotional blockage, harmonising these symptoms and aiding them in realising their potential through setting attainable goals and that identify their dream whilst removing the roadblocks towards that dream. So is that what holistic health means to you? I mean, how would you explain holistic health?
A lot of people are throwing this word around the same way how a lot of people jumping on the organic word. These are buzzwords nowadays. So, a lot of people do things in the wellness field and they class it as holistic. Now, not kind of attacking other alternative fields, but as an example, if you are just an osteopath, then if that's all you practice, that is actually by definition not holistic, because the word holistic, it actually means whole body health, which means you're looking at every facet of health. So that means you have to be looking at someone's nutrition, you have to be looking at someone's physicality or physiology, the stress in their body, what happens in their mind and their psyche. You have to look at their exercise, and you have to look at the energetic side of things as well, because every human is not, one facet. Every human is a multifaceted being. So if you're only doing acupuncture or osteopathy, you can't say you are a holistic practitioner. You can say you're an alternative practitioner by the definition of the word. So for me, holistic health is somebody who's looking at everything that their client presents. So I always say, if you're like Paul CHEK coins this brilliantly. So I'll say it like this: if all you have in your toolbox is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah.
So if you have a very open toolbox, then whatever the client presents, you can actually start to work on, because you are open enough to find out what the client has based on you being open to interpretation.
100%. I completely agree with that. That's for myself. And on our programs, for example, we look at lots of different parts of people's health and their body, and all different lifestyle factors, example. But if there's an area that I think that I'm not the strongest in, then I'll send them off to get to do it, because I say like body alignment, which we're going to go into in a little bit. Structures, chiropractic, for example. If there's something that I think they need to address and that they do need to address generally, then I'll send them off, because it is a huge part of the process. So if I said to you, Warren, what are the most common, because if we're going down that road with not just nutrition, we'll go on to the body, what are the most common injuries or people with structural problems? What are the most common ones you see with people?
Well, I mean, statistically, and it runs true of what I've seen in my own practice, but, statistically, most people, and it's weird because most people have far more pain than they say, but what drives them to come to see you is really the question, rather than, what does the client have? Because what drives people to come to you is typically low back pain. Okay. And other than low back pain, what I've seen with clients would be knee pain. So it's either low back pain or knee pain. But that's only what they're aware of. So with that, you see a lot of people with emotional issues, and a lot of these emotional issues create bad posture, because, when you look at people that have good posture, they typically have a good energy. They're typically more happy, more vibrant. People with low self-esteem typically hunch over. So there's a lot more stress in their low back because of the fact that they're hunching or pronating or flexing at different points throughout the day. So if somebody comes to me with low back pain, I'm looking at the structures, but I also have to look at what's driving the structures. I always look at things as hardware and software. So the hardware would be the structural pain, but the software is what drives it, which is the mind and the emotions and the psyche. So even though they present or they come to me with low back pain or knee pain, I always have to look at what's driving everything emotionally. What are they upset about? Do they have gut dysfunction that's actually shutting down their abdominal wall, which creates low back pain in a sense as well?
That's right. So you just open up a big can of worms there, because a lot of people will be sitting there going, "What? My gut can affect my knee pain or my lower back." So just,
do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, go for it. I mean, I've got my questions here, but this is generally what happens. We just hit on something and away we go. Because I mean, I've been in the field. I know what you mean by this, but that's a great thing you can talk about. Because for most people, as you say, for example, I'll use this. Like where you got cancer. The tumour. People think the tumour is cancer. Well, no, the tumour is actually a symptom of the cancer. But people cut it out and they think, oh, my cancer's gone. Well, no, your cancer is still there underlying. You need to get to the root cause. So this similar sort of issues with this, right? So if they're coming to you with knee pain or something else, but the actual root cause behind it might not even be physical. It might be mental, emotional.
Yeah. So to give you a good example of that, I remember there was a time when someone went to Paul who had low back pain, and he'd seen different physios and other alternative therapists, and he just couldn't get out of back pain. And so he went to Paul, and Paul just said, "Okay, let me understand what your lifestyle habits are. What are the things that you're doing that you're addicted to?" And he said, "Oh, I drink a lot of coffee." And he goes, "Okay, I think the coffee is contributing to your low back pain." He's like, "How's that?" And what happens, Paul got the guy to stop drinking coffee for 2 weeks and his back pain went. Now, how that happened relates back to your question. So we have something called and I know you know this, so we're saying this for the listeners, we have something called a reflex inhibition. So we know that the gut doesn't have its own pain receptors. It borrows its pain receptors from the muscles that superimpose it. So this is what we call visceral somatic reflexes. So the organ could be the viscera, and the somatic or soma could be the muscle. So sometimes the liver itself, which is trying to detoxify some of the toxins coming from coffee or tea or alcohol, what happens is when that organ becomes overworked, stressed, cannot work as functionally as possible, it becomes impaired. And when it becomes impaired or inflamed, then it basically sends that pain or that information to the muscle that superimposes it on the same meridian line. And for a lot of people, that can be the low back. So if somebody has an organ that is dysfunctional, then the organ doesn't have a pain receptor. It sends its pain issue or sensory input to any muscle on the same pathway that that organ actually connects to. So you could have low back pain because of an organ dysfunction. Another example of that would be people that work out in the gym, and just below their belly button they have that little pouch, and they do sit-ups until they're blue in the face, but they can't get rid of that little pouch below their belly button. And that's because the colon, which is the last stage of digestion, that is constipated. Somebody's constipated in their colon, and because they're constipated, it creates a reflex inhibition to the muscle that superimposes it, which is just below the belly button. So the brain kind of shuts down the muscle above the organ that is not working, and therefore the muscle cannot activate. So you get a little pouch in that area. So, in summary, what we're saying is if somebody has an organ dysfunction, it can shut down a muscle on the pathway that the organ reacts to.
Oh, that's an awesome explanation. So people out there, they're probably going, "Oh my God, what?" That's a different way of looking at things completely, because that won't have been mentioned. I'm guessing a lot of people, that'd be completely new information to them, unless you've worked with someone who's a holistic practitioner like yourself. So guys, if you're listening and you've been getting problems and your medication hasn't been working, or anything you've been doing hasn't been working, and that's something to definitely look into. And it's the same. Well, it's the same. I was going to go into that. Like, how important, for example, can you explain a little bit how the skeletal system being out of alignment can also impact someone's organs or impact their health?
Yes, it's really, really interesting as well. Something interesting about that, to kind of preface that, is every single, and I remember when I was studying this with Paul, and he said, look, everybody is always at least 1 or 2 millimeters out of pain. And I know that sounds weird, but in terms of structures, the body is so tightly packed that everything has its own space, but with only enough space to operate. So organs, muscles, tissues, nerves, synapses, they're all just within a specific framework where if they were to move 1 or 2 millimeters, they could compress something. So an example of this would be a lot of people that get sciatic pain. And, you know, the sciatic nerve, if it's compressed by a bone moving 1 or 2 millimeters, it can compress the nerve to the point where you get sciatica. So whenever a structure or a joint is displaced or out of position because it sits so close to specific nerve roots, it can compress those nerve roots, and then the result would be pain. And another example of that would be, I remember Paul was talking about, and this, you know, we're talking about Paul CHEK here. He was talking about there was a time when engineers, structural engineers of buildings, were shown the discs and the nerve roots in the neck, and they were asked to evaluate what they thought of the efficiency of how much space there was between the discs and all the nerve roots that passed through all the junctions in between the discs. And they said, structurally, it's impossible. We would never design something like that because everything is too closely packed together. There would be an accident, you know, from a structural building point of view. So he was trying to explain that this is why people can get injured so quickly and so easily, because everything is so closely packed together that you could always be 1 or 2 millimeters away from pain. Because if you have some joint that's moved 1 or 2 millimeters due to an impact or a fall or a car crash, then it can compress a nerve root, and then you can get dizziness, you can get sensory pain, you can get inflammation, you can get soreness, and so on. And that's just, you know, the byproduct of the body. That's why it's so important to really focus on posture, because if your posture is good, then your structures are normally in positions where they don't press against nerve roots and cause pain.
100%. I mean, this is, I want to go into this. This is why. Where do I go with this one? They've got two different ways I want to go with this. So, some people are so robust that they can do anything and they won't, and they'll feel absolutely fine. Whereas, why is it a player or a person or an athlete or whatever, they can be absolutely fine, really robust, and they get one injury, and then once they get that one injury, they're just constantly on the physio table, or they just constantly can't get right again.
Yeah, I mean, and I've seen that a lot in my practice. So I had a player who, and you know, in answer to your question, I'll get to the player example in a second. In answer to your question, a lot of it is because, as you know, they're treating the spot that hurts. That's one of the main reasons why these people are not getting better. People are, when they go to a practitioner, that practitioner is focusing on the spot that hurts, or as we say, the effect rather than the cause. So I always say to people, people don't get injured sitting at home watching TV. They don't get fit, but they don't get injured sitting at home watching TV. People get injured moving. And like I always say to people, there are no bad exercises, only poorly executed ones. So if an athlete has poor posture, and most of them do, and then they train on poor posture, they're just putting more stress on a dysfunctional system. Such as if somebody had a house and it had a poor foundation and they wouldn't build an extension on that house, they would deal with the foundation first. Athletes don't do this. They're not taught to do this, so they do whatever they've been taught based on the information given by the person that taught them. So whenever an athlete has poor posture, which is most of them, and then they get an injury, because the practitioner only treats the spot that hurts, the injury is only a byproduct of their poor posture. And the injury is just the straw that broke the camel's back. So the reason why these athletes don't get better is because the practitioners are not correcting the weakness in the body due to poor posture. They are only treating the spot that hurts. And because they're only treating the spot that hurts, which is only the symptom, this is why the athlete constantly breaks down again, because they have not dealt with the cause. They've only dealt with the effect. And to give you an example of that, I had a footballer that was playing for Fulham. I was going to actually ask you about this. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. So Kieran Richardson, and he was playing for Fulham at the time, and they needed him back because he was one of their main players. And I'd worked with him previously, So he gave me a call and said, look, can you come to Fulham because they can't get me better? So I had a crisis meeting with the sports team, the team doctor, the physio, the chiropractor, the osteopath, and the manager. And I said, okay, just tell me what's happening here. And they said, well, he's got a knee injury and we want to give him a cortisone injection. We need him to play in the next couple of weeks. And I said, okay, what have you been doing? Well, the chiropractor jumped in and said, oh, I've been manipulating him every single day and he still is getting worse. And I'm like, every day? And he's like, yeah. And then the physio goes, yeah, and I'm working with him 4 times a week. So basically, after all of them had their piece, he was getting about 25 sessions of rehab every single week. And we're talking about soft tissue and adjustments. And he wasn't getting better. And the problem was because they were all treating the spot that hurts. So I said, don't do anything with him at all. Give me 2 weeks and he'll be able to play. And all I didn't focus on his knee at all. All I did was corrected his posture because his posture was driving an imbalance in his knee that caused inflammation. So once I readjusted his posture through his neck, not his knee, he was able to play. And that's just because I focused on the cause, not the effect.
And what did they say? Did they say thank you very much? What have you done here? You're a genius, or what did they say to you?
Yeah, it's funny because I said, once I correct him, he needs to do some nutritional stuff. He needs to start eating more organic food and, detoxify and, clean up his gut wall and all that sort of stuff. And he was like, yeah, just get him on the pitch. Yeah. And I said, mark my words, he'll be breaking down in about 4 or 5 weeks if you don't do that. And so when I got him back, they were surprised and, said, okay, thanks a lot. And I said, okay, great, but he needs to do the nutrition. I said, yeah, it's fine. He's playing. So he got injured. Well, he got injured again. And I said, I can't work with him again unless you guys, do the nutritional side of me. What I'm willing to. So I said, all right. And so I just left. So they were surprised that I got him back so quickly. And they tried to watch what I was doing and tried to copy what I was doing.
So they wouldn't do it, yeah.
Yeah, they just wouldn't do it. And then when he got so bad, what happened was they actually sent him there's a specific rehab center in Germany that a lot of football players go to. And they spent 5 times the price that I had charged them to take him to this place to do nutrition when I could have just said, look, just eat organic food and get off these supplements,
This is something that, this is something that, it's like when you talk about the medical industry, people, because they've been so brainwashed, don't want to believe it. So when you're talking about that, I can 100%, I know I've come from a professional background in rugby, I played football when I was younger, but it's all the same. I think that it's just all nonsense and you can just do what you want and you'll be alright, but this is not true. And the thing is with it, and proof's in the pudding. They've been working with him for 25 hours a week and not getting any results. You took a couple of weeks and sorted him out, and it's just mind-boggling. It's almost like they don't want to believe. It's like as Paul would say, a fear-based dogma. They don't want to believe it.
Yeah, and there's so many examples of some, and I don't really like working with footballers anymore because there's too much politics. I'd rather the football just come to me outside of the club and just deal with that rather than the politics. I've had footballers that are living on cortisone injections, and I say, well, come and see me and you won't need the cortisone, and they're, no, I'll take the cortisone. I'm like, do you not understand that the cortisone injection doesn't mean you're healing, it just means you don't feel it. And like, you're going to be worse once you come off it, and they're always worse and they always retire, or they're forced into semi-retirement because of the injuries, because they're not treating the actual issues that are contributing to their changes in life. And a lot of them, they just don't want to change their lifestyle. They don't want to go to bed at 10 o'clock. They don't want to give up the alcohol. They don't want to stretch. I've met so many football players that are 24, 25. And, when I say they can't touch their toes, I mean they're like 10 inches away from their toes. They have the stiffness of a 50, 60-year-old because they just don't believe in stretching. So, they just want to kick a ball and lift weights, and they think that's the goal. Yeah,
you know why? The stretching is boring. And I
exactly.
It, but it is boring.
Yeah.
And the thing I'm actually surprised that so many of them get back on the pitch. People, when you see them have these long injuries, I'm actually surprised that a lot of these players, they're so genetically superior or just gifted, I'd say, that they get back on anyway. But I'm just surprised a lot more of them don't break down, and a lot more of them actually get back on the pitch. It's just thanks to their probably good genes that they get away with murder.
Yeah.
Willpower as well?
Yeah, a lot of it is willpower because a lot of them are playing injured and they think that's normal, and it's not normal. It's just common.
Yeah, that's a good. It's not normal. It's just common.
Yeah. And, Arsenal, and I don't, obviously we don't want to spend too much time talking about football here, but
That's
just
fine.
one other quick example. 2 years ago, Arsenal had, I think it was about 7 or 8 players that all had the same hamstring injury on the same leg. The problem was their conditioning program, but they were willing to change it.
I'm an Arsenal fan, so you're talking this sort of thing frustrates me more than anything in the world. And I was sitting there going, yeah, but he's the best guy. Like, they've got him in. I was like, have you seen some of the things they're doing? But guys, people they're not in our world. They don't understand. And I'm like, some of the things they're doing, it's just like, you're so. Some people are so far behind in the race, they actually believe they're leading.
Exactly. It's a good way of putting it like that.
And I was just like. Yeah, but they're doing. This is the other thing I was talking about when you see like rugby players and they're having maxi muscle and yeah, but Ryan, what you on about? They're working with the best in the business. They're England nutritionists. They know what they're talking about. Really? Have you seen what's in that? That's like a what's what and who's who of what you don't want your athlete to be drinking.
Exactly.
And they're just lucky they've got iron guts and they just get away with murder. It's true though. Like,
you're right.
Until they get a chronic illness or a chronic problem, then they've got to change it. So yeah, so you saw this. I'm going to stay on this because I'm an Arsenal fan. You saw the program and it was just diabolical.
Yeah, the program was the problem, and that's why using another analogy, 10 years of ignorance can wipe out 100 years of truth. 100. And you just see that with these athletes that are training on machines, and like you said, drinking maxi muscle, that's just dehydrating their muscles, inflaming their gut wall, and then they wonder why their abdominal walls don't fire. And when I explain to some of these footballers, when you run, the impact, especially on wet grass, the impact on your knees are tremendous. It's between 5 and 6 times your body weight per leg every single time you land. And I said, what do you think stabilizes your knees when you hit the ground? My football boots. It's not your football boots. It's your core. And if your core doesn't fire, because, proprioceptive muscles react faster than pain receptors, if your core is firing because the proprioceptors turn on, then what's happening is actually buffering the impact load into your knees by stabilization. So the stabilization sequence has to fire first in order for you to create what's known as force generation. So just for the listeners who don't understand that real quickly, if someone's about to throw a ball like a baseball pitcher, they push off the ground. So if they push using the earth to push off and throw, that's called force generation because they're generating force by pushing off the ground. If they were trying to throw a ball in the water, they wouldn't get as much power because there's nothing to push off of. So that's a simple example of force generation. So force generation has to be kind of supported by stabilization. And as Paul beautifully puts it, you can't fire a cannon from a canoe because a canoe is unstable. You can only fire a cannon from land. So a lot of these athletes, they drink and eat this garbage food that shuts down their inner unit, the gut wall. And because the gut is kind of surrounded by the abdominal wall then shuts down. And because the abdominal wall needs to stabilize load, because the abdominals don't work, they just look good. Every single time they land, there's nothing buffering the impact into their knees or their ankles. And that's why a lot of these people have knee pain, back pain, and so on, because their core doesn't work. So rather than just getting them to do crunchies and all this crap, they just need to first learn how to breathe properly because they're using the diaphragm. The diaphragm, it helps assist the abdominal wall. And then the other thing they need to do is just get off a lot of this garbage food that's actually shutting down the gut wall and creating all this inflammation that makes their functional abdominal muscles not work. Just treat the problem, not the symptom.
100%. And this is the reason they get away with it as well is because they're all looking pretty good. They're all pretty ripped up, but they run around every day, so they will be generally.
They're working the show muscles rather than the go muscles.
Right, 100%. But because they're all very very lean, it's people just they take everything at face value. They don't understand. I always look at it. If barring a car crash injury, if you're an athlete, you really shouldn't be getting injured. Terms of if you're training right and eating correctly and living right and staying away from lots of toxins and etc. Unless you've got a standing leg and someone comes up and completely just destroys your ankle. I don't know, which can happen. But even then, if you're training right, I think you shouldn't really get injured a lot of the time, especially pulled muscles and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just there. And the problem is people say, well, why aren't you employed by these companies or these clubs? Well, first of all, because as you say, things are a little bit controversial for them, because they've been taught by another version of the medical industry. And secondly, I don't know, when it comes to earning money, you probably get paid £60,000 a year from them, and you can probably earn a lot more doing what you're doing, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not even that high. I mean, because I'd been asked by a few clubs to come in and actually work full time, and you work like a slave for them. But some of these physios. So when like going back to your point earlier about, but they employ experts. They don't employ experts. They get given the term expert because they're at a highly esteemed club. But a lot of these people just come out of university and they get a job with Arsenal, and all of a sudden, oh, you're an Arsenal physio. That means you're an expert through association, not through tests and proving, but through association. But a lot of these physios and people are actually paid about 25 to 30,000 a year. A lot of them, I've spoken to quite a few of them. A lot of them are actually paid that low. In terms of what you see, the players are getting paid per week. So it's very, 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 separate. In terms of the quality.
This is where, in my head, it doesn't make sense, right? Because, you're paying the players that much to be on the pitch. Fair enough. They're the prize horse. They're the ones that are scoring the goals, stopping the goals, whatever it is. Surely the people that are looking after them and making sure they're on the pitch should be paid pretty well, Yeah. Because they're the ones that are stopping you from having to go out and buy more players if your one gets injured.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about the Fulham, Kieran Richardson, at the time I think he was getting about 25,000 a week, and so he was, and it's like you're basically getting paid that amount of money to sit on the bench because you're injured, and then you bring someone in and you only want to pay them £100 a week or whatever it is to help the person that you're paying 25,000 a week to get off the bench. It makes no sense.
It makes no sense whatsoever. It's just madness. But the thing, when you say that, the reason I'm saying I call it experts, because a lot of these people, for example, I don't know, Tony Colbert, who worked with Arsenal, for example, he had all these things behind him, FA this, done that. I think he might have had a degree or masters, and people see masters, or I think when I was younger I looked into some of these things and they said you had to have a masters to even apply. And I was like, but what works on paper, as you know, doesn't work on practice a lot of the time. And also does that, I don't know, been through what I've been through, a lot of the stuff they're taught, it just doesn't isn't great in terms of getting an athlete back on the pitch and getting them rehabilitated. So it's certification or education sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Athletes perform, something that Paul CHEK always says, athletes perform well in spite of their exercise program, not because of it.
Yeah, and as you'd know, and I know, and Paul would know, the amount of people that come to you when they actually get these problems, you would say it's funny because I always seem to get the medical failures or the people that first of all didn't believe me, then they lose you as your last resort, So I just wanted to just quickly, because we're on football, I don't really talk about football that much, and there's a lot of listeners, or not male listeners, that probably do like football, especially in the UK. I know you've worked close with Emil Heskey before. If you were structuring, because footballers, for example, they've got to be lean, they've got to be fit, fast, strong, and you mean they probably do run quite a few. You said there, like the amount of force they put through every stride that goes through their body. They've actually got to cover. A lot of them cover up to 10k, 11k a game. How would you go about structuring a program for a footballer in terms of, because they have got to be lean, they have got to be fit, and so would you just go through, like, very simply, I suppose, at the stage you'd go through that?
Yeah, I mean, regardless of what sport, and this sounds really weird, but regardless of the sport, we always start with the same thing, which is obviously the assessment. But we basically take them through flexibility, then stability, and then strength, and then power. So flexibility, stability, strength, power. So most of the athletes, most of the professionals, sticking with football for a moment, professional footballers, the way they're trained is at the strength power stage of conditioning, regardless of where they are in the season or off season. They always go through strength and power. And that's wrong because of the foundation. The foundation is the stability. So with any footballer, the first thing I would work on straight away is teaching them how to have stabilization through doing a lot of nervous system activation stuff. So anything that challenges balance. So working on a lot of unstable instruments, first of all, because that challenges the body's fear factor. And when the body thinks it's about to die, it turns on more muscles to protect itself. So if you think of the example of somebody walking on ice. As soon as they're walking on ice, their body becomes far more aware, and their every stride has more purpose, versus someone that's just walking on concrete. They don't pay attention because it's safe. So first of all, with a footballer, I would work on their stabilization, because most footballers' balance isn't very good. And you need that stabilization, especially in the UK where there's a lot of rain, because the grass changes its stability when it's wet. So you want to, first of all, work that foundation. And obviously, if somebody has their tonic postural system or the stabilization system, if that's strong, then the brain knows it can recruit more power into the phasic muscles, because it now knows that its system is strong enough to protect it. So I would work, first of all, on things that are improving posture, any form of nervous system stuff. The next thing I would work on, especially for footballers, would be working on their hamstrings and their glutes, or the hip extensor mechanism, because most footballers have very, very weak hamstrings, and I've trained a lot of them. And the very basic hamstring exercises that I've given all of them, and 90% of them fail those tests. They cannot do them, and it's shocking, because I've got mums that can do it, and I've got very unfit men and women that can do it, and these professional multi-million-pound athletes cannot do these incredibly basic hamstring exercises. And when I say mums, I'm talking about a woman that's probably just had a child 2 months ago that hasn't exercised, and she could do it. And these professional athletes can't. They've got incredibly weak hamstrings, but they have incredibly strong quads and incredibly strong hip flexors. And looking at the agonist and antagonist, or the opposite muscles, the front of the muscle and the back of the muscle, the rest in tone relationships on one side of a muscle and the opposite side must always be equal. So to give the listeners an example of this, if it sounds too complicated, if somebody was to sit on a seesaw, if there was one person who weighed 100 pounds on one side, then in order for the seesaw to be balanced, there has to be another person weighing 100 pounds on the other side. And that means the rest in tone, or the weight distribution, is equal. Now, using that example, most footballers typically, let's say, have 200 pounds on the quads and 50 pounds on their hamstrings. So the quads are always dominant. They are quad dominant. And because of that, the hamstrings are always on a stretch, because they're being pulled by the stronger muscle in front. And that's constant stress. That's constant load. And because of that, every single time they then run, they're putting so much stress on a muscle that has been overstretched and very weak. And therefore, they get injured. And then what the physio does is they come in and they just give soft tissue, but the injury isn't a problem of inflammation, it's a problem of weakness. So rather than just soft tissue, actually strengthen, because that's the problem in the first place. So with that, I would focus a lot on increasing hamstring strength, and I'd hardly do any form of quad stuff, because they do it so much in football. So you do what's missing, find out what's missing and replace it. So I do a lot of that sort of stuff. And then, because they spend a lot of time jumping and pushing off from one side to the other, dynamically changing direction to chase balls or to tackle or to, avoid, you would start doing a lot of lunge exercises that are not loaded with weight, but are more relative to exploding and changing direction. So we do things like multi-directional lunging. So you lunge at 0, 45, 90 degree angles. So you basically train the body system to mimic the movement patterns that correlate to the sport that they do. So you do a lot of lunging stuff. And then finally, postural stuff like prone cobras, where they would learn to hold a position where their chest is open and their back muscles are squeezing, so they maintain really good postural alignment. So that's kind of like the basic stuff that you want to start off with people. But it's always at the stabilization stage for about 5 to 6 weeks before I even move into a strength phase before a power stage.
Okay. So, the one thing I would say about rugby players going from that is that they're pretty good at doing their gym work. But they've got quite a good well-rounded. I know some football players, I said lazy, but they're just, I don't know, they get paid so much money, they can be lazy. I'm just going to say it, they can be. Depends on that. But well, when someone's going through, so for example, when they're doing the initial stages, would there be any concern of them putting on weight if they're not doing as much conditioning, if they're not doing as much strength work, or what do you know? How would they? Because they've got to be very lean, these footballers, for their sport. Would they put on any?
Yeah. I mean, that would only happen because they eat crap. It's like I always say to people, you don't put on weight because you don't exercise. You put on weight because you don't eat right. And so people eat terribly, and then they kill themselves in the gym to lose the weight they put on through just being, gluttonous and having poor choices. So, one of the things in one of our initial sessions would be focusing on their nutrition. I don't like to say the word diet because everybody thinks that means losing weight, but to focus on their nutrition. So simple things like, and because, as you know, a lot of athletes, they have this diva mentality. They just want to do whatever they want to do. So what we do is we have to create a rainbow bridge. And the rainbow bridge is whatever they like to do, you just help them to do it better rather than take it out of their diet because you get opposition. So with a lot of these athletes, I would just say, look, start drinking more water. But water's boring. Okay, have that Volvic water with lime or, flavored water. That's a good start. So that's a rainbow bridge. So if they're drinking more water and then, getting them to eat whatever they already eat, but as a rotation diet, then that way they avoid food intolerance and thus they avoid inflammation, and their gut wall gets a chance to heal some of the inflammation that comes in from the constant foods that they're eating that are creating the inflammation. So you just say, right, I don't need to eat anything different, just rotate the foods that you already eat. So at least that way their body's actually getting some rest from some of the toxins, and because they're drinking more water, at least they're diluting or helping their body to eliminate a lot of these toxins that they're already intaking. So that would be the first part of it. And what I found of all of these footballers, they don't gain weight because they're, even though the stuff we're doing is it's not what people call cardiovascularly challenging, because it's very challenging to their nervous system because they're active, they're fine, they don't gain weight. And because I've always monitored their diet, their food intake by getting them to rotate and they have to send me food charts. And if I don't think they're following it properly, then I ask them to send me copies of all of their receipts from their shops so I can actually see what they're eating. And then make sure they drink water. And I've never had one footballer that's gained weight on the rehab program. I don't do the silly soft rehab where they just lay on the floor and they raise one foot or lift their toe. All that sort of stuff is more challenging.
Okay. Well, just because it's out there, just put it out there. People that know Paul, for example, when you look at Paul, he's very lean, he's very muscular, but he still practices yoga and qigong. I mean, from your experience, this is one of the things I always find that people always ask: how did he get it? I mean, how can he be in such strong physical shape as well as incorporating things like yoga? Because most yogis, like yourself, probably they got posture like yourself. You come from a martial arts background, so they look more like a martial arts person, where they can be quite strong, but maybe very lean, not as muscular. Whereas Paul looks like he can step onto a
bodybuilder.
He's not a bodybuilder, but he doesn't, because most bodybuilders now, I'd say, they look terrible.
Exactly.
He looks like someone. He looks more like probably, I'd say, a flanker in rugby or something like that. How would you go about people out there not footballers and they actually want to put on some more size? How would you go about incorporating all this and actually getting that look?
If somebody wanted to focus on getting bigger, gaining muscle.
Well, for example, because a lot of gaining muscle, but not stepping away from all the things like say they were play, so for example, a rugby player who needed to put on the size and gain muscle, but he didn't want to compromise all the central nervous system work you've been doing. He didn't want to compromise his flexibility, etc. How do they incorporate it all?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that, again, it depends on the window of time that the person has in order for them to get back to training. My prime concern is make them functional, first of all. The aesthetic side will is just nowhere near as important. If they want to gain muscle because they feel weak, then first of all, I kind of explain to them that size isn't just a prerequisite for strength. You can actually gain strength, especially if you train functionally. As you know, like with Paul CHEK, again, using him as an example, and he's 56 now, and he can deadlift 550 pounds. And, he's only right now, because he lost some weight about 10 years ago due to an injury. And so now he's only 168 pounds, but he can deadlift 550 pounds. Now, there's a lot of people that weigh 100 pounds more than him that can't even lift that weight. So if you train functionally, you actually gain far more strength because there's more muscles on the job. So if somebody wants to gain size, I first of all have to figure out why they need that size in the first place. Like if it's rugby and they need the size to offset somebody barging them, that's slightly different to somebody who aesthetically just wants to gain size. Because if it goes against the time that I have with them for them to become functional, then it's taken away from the dream, because their dream initially is to get out of pain. So if I only have 8 hours a week or a month or whatever, I have to decide what's more important for that person. And we have to create a dream sharing vision. What's more important for them right now? What's the dream? Why did you come to me? I came to you to get out of pain. Okay, have we finished that? No. Okay, so then the aesthetic side can wait. But if they have more time and we've gotten them out of pain, and now they're at the stage to say, right, I'm out of pain, I've moved through flexibility and stability, now I'm on strength and power, that's the question, then we first of all, as long as there's no pain and stuff, then we first of all look at their primal pattern type, or some people call it the metabolic type and type, whatever their genetic eating requirements are. So we first of all have to test them to make sure that if they need more protein, or they need more fats, or they need more carbohydrates based on their food type. And if they eat based on their food type, then typically it's easier for them to be able to put on muscle, because they're actually giving their body what it needs. So, going back to that saying, one man's food is another man's poison. So if you give a carbo type or a equatorial type who needs more carbohydrates as part of their fuel, too much protein, then you may get them bigger, but they may become constipated because they can't get all the protein out of their diet because they're a slow oxidizer. So it wouldn't work for them. So, we can't really do a this or that approach for everyone, regardless of their goal, because it has to be tailored to their genetics. So let's say somebody is a protein type, and you've tested them, and you figured out they're a protein type, and they want to gain more muscle. Then you just say, okay, eat based on your ratio, just eat more of that ratio. Eat based on your ratio about 3,500 calories a day, because their body will use it because it's right for their genetic type. And if that's the case, then you just change the loading zones for the person. So if somebody wants to put on more muscle, then you start focusing on the loading zone of their exercise. And so what that means is, if someone's 1 rep max is 100, then you work at 70% of their 1 rep max upwards, which now creates more of a muscle growth stage of benefit for the exercise. And you would do that with any one of them based on their genetic type.
Oh, interesting. So 70%. That's cool. So it's all just about getting the diet right as well, and making sure once they're fully functioning, then you can progress them onto it. And so in a program where they would say they were maintaining, you'd have different aspects of the training throughout a week. For example, you might have a strength maintenance, and you also have your flexibility stuff.
Yeah, so you would go through base conditioning phase. So if somebody's rehabilitated and there's no pain left, they come through flexibility and stability. Once they've gone through flexibility and stability, when they're at the strength power stage, they have no more pain. That's why you move them into those stages, because there's more stress on the joints, and you want to make sure that they're optimally aligned before you put stress on those joints. So if they're now in the strength and power stages, then all you do is you tweak the amount of reps and sets that the person needs based on their functional goal. Because when you're working at flexibility and stability, you're not taking into account their functional goal. You're just working on correcting the imbalances that created pain. Right. Once you've gotten past that, and then strength and power, then depending on what they need, you're either going to do 1 to 3 reps or 5 to 8 reps and so on, based on their functional goal.
Cool. But Whereas a lot of people are actually, they look great, but underneath they haven't got that foundation. So that's what leads to injury.
Yeah. And, going back to what you were saying earlier about people challenging, people like us, that thing where when it comes to ideas, first of all, ideas are first opposed, and then they're scorned, and then they're accepted as true. That's what we're going.
Or they're taken as their own.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what people do. No, 100%. Sticking on diet, sticking on the diet part. In one of your podcast episodes, you don't know, Warren's got his own podcast. What's the name of your podcast, Warren?
You're asking me. I think it's Whole Being Health.
Yes, Whole Being Health. I was going to say it's not, because Warren's website is Warren Williams Coaching. It's Whole Being Health. Yeah, I'm asking you. You should know.
Yeah, I know. I was like, damn. I hope I remember.
So on one of his podcast episodes, he talks about vertical disease and how you're wearing your choices. Can you just explain a little bit more what you mean by that?
Yeah. So most people, they basically they dig themselves into a grave based on the foods that they eat. So it's like your whatever you eat either makes you stay out of the grave longer or puts you into the grave quicker. So what we find nowadays is most people, by the time they're 35, 40, have damaged themselves so badly with the choices of foods and lifestyle that they've created for themselves that they are eating themselves into an early grave. So the corpse still walks around by 35, 40, but physiologically they're dead. And that's why you see a lot of people nowadays, especially even in their 20s, having heart attacks, diabetes, obesity, colon cancer and so on, because a lot of this is like, as most of these things that are in our body, these illnesses, are created through our own choices. So the choices that we create the problems that we have. No one catches cancer by accident. You get it through either lifestyle or, there are some rare cases where, they get it from the sun. But, a lot of the times it's because of a genetic weakness in the person due to things that they created. So as we know, 90 to 95% of all illnesses on the planet are lifestyle, and the other 5% are genetic, such as a child is born with a nut allergy. That is genetic, but a lot of the others, 95%, are acquired through poor choices. So we are basically maiming our bodies through the choices that we created throughout our lives that are not even shortening our lifespans, because we're actually living longer, but they're shortening our quality of life from an earlier age than. Like Paul CHEK gave a really good example recently, and he said, if you look at, because a lot of people say, I'm big boned, or it's in my bloodline, and then Paul's like, look at a photo, and I thought this was brilliant. He said, if you look at photos of your great grandparents, you always notice they're always slim. Mm-hmm. You never see pictures of great grandparents that are fat or obese or sick looking. And it's like, I was like, oh yeah, it's true, And he said, well, they're your ancestors, but they're healthy and they're slim. So why are you not? It's because of choices. So when you see a mum who's fat and then her daughter looks exactly the same, but her daughter's 15, that's a lifestyle problem, not a genetic problem. Mm-hmm. So that's basically what we mean. People are just making bad choices that are creating the illnesses that they're trying to get rid of. And because, like you said earlier, most people run to the doctors, as we always say, there's no money in the cure, only in the treatment. So, people are paying thousands and thousands a year to stay alive with medication when they should spend a lot less and just focus on, healthier choices, getting out in nature, moving more, breathing more. The 4 doctors, move doctor diet, which is making better food choices, eating food slowly and choosing, high quality foods. Dr. Quiet, finding time for me time, stillness, Tai Chi, Qigong, breathing exercises, movement, getting in correct exercise, not just sitting on a fixed machine that does nothing for you, but actually using free weights and dumbbells and outside, throwing a frisbee, going for a swim, diet, quiet, happiness, and happiness is like the chief physician when it comes to psychology. So, doing things that you love to do. Don't do things because you're obligated to do them. So find things that you love. So, sometimes you talk to somebody who's like 45, what did you used to do that made you happy that you don't do anymore? I used to love playing the violin. I wasn't very good at it, but it made me feel good. Why don't you do it anymore? I don't know. Life got in the way. So they're making choices that don't make them happy anymore. I used to hang out with my friends. We used to go Latin dancing. I just don't do it anymore. I'm getting older, so I just gave that up. Find the things that you loved. And if you live those 4 doctors, then you will offset vertical disease.
Yeah, people, I think the age thing, if people live them right, it doesn't really come into account. And as you said, the lifestyle factors, I mean, there's a new field that the medical industry keeps on wanting to ignore, and I keep bringing it up, is something called epigenetics, which shows you that our lifestyle, actually, when people are women getting their breast cut off, for example, because they've got the breast cancer gene, it's just moronic, because if they live a certain way, they're never going to express those genes, and it just tells you that your lifestyle will. So everything you said there is understand. Yeah, you say 90-95% of diseases are lifestyle. And you talk about the best diet. I know you talked about metabolic diet. One of the things I wanted to get into quickly before I had to go, because I know it's taking your time, was just the importance of the mind. I mean, people these days are always on their phone, their computer. I wanted to go a little bit deeper into this, and maybe we'll go into it next time. But how does this impact their ability to heal, their health? I mean, because everyone seems to be ignoring their body's signals and signs.
That's a great question. It's something that obviously is relevant, especially today with the technological world that we're in nowadays. We think that I always say that we think we're more advanced nowadays because we have iPads, but we're more disconnected now than ever. And I'll tell you a stunning, disconcerting fact is that the average person looks at their phone 400 times a day. 400 times a day. And I saw a video, someone shared a video with me of a little girl, an Indian girl somewhere in India, talking about her mum and dad, and how she said, her teacher said to her, "What would you like to be when you grow up?" She goes, "I'd like to be a phone." And the teacher was like, "Huh?" And then she goes, "Well, when I see my dad, I try to give him a hug, I try to speak to him, but he's too busy on his phone. He loves his phone, he cleans his phone, he takes care of his phone is next to his bed, he pays his phone so much attention, and so does my mum." And she goes, "So I'd like to be a phone, because at least I'd get attention, and they'd look at me and pay attention to me all the time." Sad. It was a very, very sad video. And it's so true today. You sometimes see women just, their child is crying its eyes out, and the mum or dad is just on their phone, not even paying the child any attention. So from a connection point of view, we've lost that connection. And then from a health point of view, the electromagnetic frequencies that are coming off these tablets and phones and Wi-Fi is tremendous. And, there's so much research now that's proven that these things are creating cancer in our bodies, because they're making genes mutate and become tumorous and carcinogenic. And, there's been tests showing certain women that it really annoys me when I see women walking down the road and they've got their mobile phone tucked into their bra. I'm like, oh my gosh, do you not understand what your phone is doing? Your phone is constantly seeking radio waves, constantly, in order for it to keep connected. And all you're doing is you're basically putting an antenna next to your breast, 10 hours a day, however long you keep it there. And it's the same with men that put mobile phones on a belt next to their testicles. You're basically, creating an antenna right next to your testicles, and you wonder why you get prostate cancer or breast cancer. So, these things are increasing because of this wireless technology. It's necessary, it has a benefit, but there are ways to kind of control it, such as getting energetic protectors. So things like Aries technology. And again, when I give these examples, I'm not sponsored by any of these companies. I just know they work. Aries technology, Tesla technologies. So they help to dampen the electromagnetic radiation coming from these devices that are actually causing cancers and tumors and inflammation in our cells. So, so the listeners will say, well, I can't stop using them. We're not asking you to stop using them. But a really good thing that your listeners can do with your phone is, a lot of people sleep with their phone right next to their head and they just put it on silent. That's the worst thing you can do. What you want to do is put your phone on airplane mode. Because on airplane mode, it can't receive, which is why it works on planes. It can't receive any wireless technology, it no longer acts as an antenna that can actually damage your brain. So if they have it on airplane mode and they sleep with it and they use it as an alarm, it's fine. But if they just turn it off and leave it as an alarm, it's still radiating. That's something that you can do. Yeah,
that's a good tip. When you walk, for example, I always say this. I mentioned it. I had Dr. Terry Tillard on last time. We talked all about cancer, and I say, like, if I'm out and walking, I generally hold my phone in my hand. If not, I put it in my back pocket because I don't want it anywhere near my testicles. Where do you put yours?
I put mine. Yeah, a lot of times I hold it in my hand, but I've got a Aries CHEK plate on my mobile phone. And I've also, I actually carry an Aries, a personal protector, very powerful personal protector, an Aries protector you can put around your neck. And I wear something called shungite. Shungite is a crystalline gemstone that actually has been proven through tests that it actually protects against electromagnetic frequencies. And I also carry a Tesla plate. So I actually carry 3 different electromagnetic protectors as well as one on my phone.
God, you're madder than me. So you're gone. So first of all, for the listeners out there, shungite is a crystal, correct?
Yeah, you can only get it. I should say, I mean, it only grows in Russia. It's black, and it only grows in Russia. But you can get it on Amazon. You can get anything on Amazon now. Cool. So yeah, shungite. So it's a lot cheaper than getting the. I should say more inexpensive. It's a lot more inexpensive than getting the personal protectors because the personal protectors can range from 80 to 250 pounds. But if you get like shungite as a bracelet or a necklace, you could probably pay about £20 for it. Okay. Just bear in mind, because it's black, it means it absorbs faster and more. So you'd have to clean it more often. Whereas the personal protectors, you never need to clean them because they have a technology that self-cleans.
When you say clean, how would you clean it?
You just put it in. You can put it in sunlight, easiest way. Okay. You leave it in sunlight for 24 hours, or you can just put it in sea salt for a couple of hours, cool. And the sea salt will actually clean it.
Cool. And the Aries, just for people out there, is this just a website? Is it Aries? I know there's one.
AriesTech.com.
AriesTech.com, yeah, because I remember I was looking into them. People out there, truthaboutcancer.com. I don't know if you've probably heard about it, right? The Truth About Cancer. Yeah, there was talking to the company over there, and we're looking into a few of them, and there's a few different companies that we're looking into, but some of them have higher. Their products obviously better than others, basically in very simple terms. So you can vouch for this Aries technology.
Yeah, this is the doctor's name. Oh, I forget his name right now. Dr. David. He's a very well-known guy. But he's done a lot of tests. I'll see if I can try to remember his name in a sec. He's done a lot of tests on this stuff, and he reported it. Did a lot of reports on testing electromagnetic frequencies of these, and they were proven to be the most effective. But from my own personal experience, if you're on the phone for an hour without it, you can get the headaches and you can get the burning, the heat in your ears. But once you wear them, David Getoff, that's his name, Dr. David Getoff. He's a master at all this sort of stuff into technology, and he's done it on. I can't remember what his website is, but it's Dr. David Getoff, and his surname is Getoff. And he did a lot of tests, and he put a report on his website of all the technologies, and said a lot of. So if you just go on eBay and try to buy one for £5, he was just ripping those to pieces. He said a lot of them do absolutely nothing. Based on the test that they did, and they showed there was only a few of them, like 5% of all the ones that are on the market that actually do anything.
Yeah, I'm just looking at his site now, actually. Okay. Some of these people that are, they're brilliant, and their websites just look so pony.
His website's terrible.
And you're just like, mate, come on. This is the reason why people like yourself, you need to have a good website so people actually believe you, because... Yeah. I know it sounds silly, but people are like
difficult. They're visual.
It is. It's true, and people like. I mean, I don't go by that. It's like one of the companies out there, the Light Energized Solutions. Have you heard of them?
I think I have, but I've never visited their website.
They're very obviously all the energetic frequencies, how it can. I mean, one of the most powerful supplements on the planet once you get into them, and because they're all coded electronically, like everything is.
Okay.
But their website was just not very good. But then obviously the FDA, which is an American website, come in and said they couldn't actually describe what their products did because they were too powerful. They used to use them in the hospitals in America, people with cancer and stuff, to draw out toxins. And then, for example, a detox bath. I think the first time I had one, the next day the world just fell out of me. It was it was very powerful. But I think it's these people. I might even send a message. David, come on, let's get your website up. His website is www.naturopathforyou.com, and then I'll have a little look. So, okay, brilliant. So yeah, so it's Sanjit or go and get one of these things for you. But I mean, I wanted to go deeper into this, but I know you've got clients, so I'm gonna let you. Yeah,
I've got a friend.
Yeah,
that's 10 minutes. Yeah.
I'm gonna let you go, Warren. But great interviewing you. And we'll get you back on actually at a later date if that's all right with you, to have a bit more.
My pleasure.
How the mind works, and a bit more about that. That's okay. But thank you very much for coming on, Warren. It's an absolute pleasure to speak to you. I mean, if you want to check out Warren, his website's at www.warrenwilliamscoaching.com, and I think he's also, if you type that into YouTube, you'll be able to see his videos, etc. on there. But yeah, thanks very much, Warren. It's been a pleasure.
All right, thanks, Ryan.
Cool.
Thanks.
Keep well.
Bye.
So guys, there we have it. There was the interview with Warren Williams. I'd say it was one of our most interesting interviews. We covered a lot of different topics there, and I'm sure you probably had your mind opened, especially when it comes to things like reflex inhibition, how the skeletal system affects organ function, injury prevention, and just why physios and chiropractors generally don't work. There's a lot of information in there, but specifically how your food can play such an important role, not just in cleaning your body out from the inside out, but in how it can switch off and switch on different muscles and cause pain in different organs, and how your organs actually don't have pain receptors, so they send it to muscles that are on their meridian line, which is probably something I haven't actually talked about before, and I probably should have done. But then again, I just interview people. I might start doing some more myself, but we'll see how it goes. I quite enjoy interviewing other people because I put quite a lot of information out myself on my own site at www.reviveyourself.co and my Facebook page. But I might start doing some podcast episodes myself because there are some things I'd like to delve into. But great interview with Warren there. As I said before, you can find him at warrenwilliamscoaching.com if you'd like. Otherwise, guys, any questions you've got regarding it, don't hesitate to send me an email at Ryan@reviveyourself.co. There's a lot of stuff to cover there. And also, as I mentioned before the show, if you have been going through any of your own chronic health issues and you'd like to join our free 4-day mini course, if you've been going through gut issues, especially gut issues, but if you've been going through any other issue, chronic fatigue, brain fog, thyroid issues, adrenal fatigue, any sort of anything really to do with having a systemic problem, then either give me a message at ryan@reviveyourself.co or heading over to www.reviveyourself.co, and you can just type in free 4-day mini course, and that's something that will really help you get to understand what's been going on and get to the root cause of your problems. But guys, I think that was a great episode today. I hope you got a lot from it. As I said before, any questions, don't hesitate just to ask. I think we're definitely going to get Warren on again. We'll go more into, we'll dig more into the mind and how that plays a part in health, because the mind is a huge part of health. And we'll also start looking at other things like parasites. I'm looking at some really good guests at the moment, booking in some really good guests around parasites and how they affect us. And in fact, there's even been new research at the moment which shows that cancer, it's been sort of quite a long time in the natural health world, holistic health world, that cancer is actually a fungus or a parasite, a build-up of fungus and parasites that's what a tumour is. So these things are becoming more mainstream now because they just can't continue to ignore it. So we're looking at, again, Doug Kaufman on, who's author of Know the Cause, about parasites, as well as Dr. Robert Cesar. We're looking at getting on Dr. Davis. We're talking all about electromagnetic frequencies and radiation from phones and how that can affect, it can cause brain tumours, etc. Even though the medical industry wants to deny it, there's a reason why that is. So guys, got a lot of good stuff coming up, as well as the next interview with Oliver Bennett of the London Nutrition Clinic, all about Lyme's disease. Now, Lyme's disease has been the biggest, well, I'd say the biggest growing disease. I think it's increased 65% every year for the last 20 years in Europe. So that's how much big of a problem it is. And it's a great imitator. It's something that can imitate other diseases. And people don't know what it is. And most people don't get diagnosed with it. It's something the medical industry don't even, they completely refuse to believe it exists, because the insurance companies don't want to pay out for people to actually get treatment for it, because it takes a long time treating these things, and it's a long process, and it's a process that requires a very skilled approach, and so they much rather just deny it exists, chronic Lyme. But any of you that, if you want to look into Lyme, it's something we're going to before it's something we're going to in the next episode. But if you want to go into YouTube and watch the film Under Our Skin, that's going to teach you a lot about Lyme disease, and it's something that is really becoming more and more prominent in today's society, unfortunately. So anyway, guys, that's it for episode 19. I'll see you next week with Oliver Bennett, all about Lyme disease. Otherwise, guys, as I said before, hit me up if you need anything from me, or you're looking to get into the 28 into the 4-day total gut revival program. Otherwise, guys, as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.
If you're struggling with gut issues such as gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, indigestion, heartburn, and want to finally be able to eat the foods you love without the crippling after effects, then don't forget to head over to reviveyourself.co and pick up your free copy of The Healing Health Paradigm today.